I want to prepare you before watching this video. The subject is dark, but I felt it was worth speaking of because it could be useful to anyone who is considering joining the military or who is already enlisted. The implications are deep. Douglas Dietrich was a military research librarian with a high clearance for the purpose of acquiring access to ancient documents and books containing satanic rituals, which he says are practiced by many high-ranking military officers. He speaks frankly about working under an officer who was also known as a satanic priest. Dietrich explains that it was the invocation of spirits by the Japanese in World War II that prompted U.S. military involvement in the summoning of entities, including demons. Did the military at this time, the American military at this time, suspect or grasp that this was something of a supernatural nature?
Absolutely, because what had happened was with the Showa ultimatum, and this is something I go into in my DVD, Roswell and the Rising Sun, with the Showa ultimatum that was delivered after the Americans went nuclear. When the Americans went nuclear with the atomic bomb, and this is what I try to point out to the Americans, is that because what they hit were civilian targets, it had no impact on the Japanese army in the field, just as 9/11 and the Pentagon attacks in no way, shape, or form impacted the U.S. war machine.
Right.
There was no single U.S. soldier or tank or any military asset that was damaged by the 9/11 attacks on the Pentagon, the Twin Towers. The same with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. When Hiroshima and Nagasaki took place, they caused untold human suffering. And what were the Americans killing? Infants in their cribs, old people in their beds, women and children. All the men are in the field. And so all the military assets are still out there and going strong. The Imperial Japanese Army was hurt not one whit in function by the atomic bombs, but by the Americans going nuclear, they had conducted a terrorist act. And at that point, the emperor responded with an ultimatum concerning the biological weapons. And what he delivered with that was, and we can summon our ancestors and the spirits of our ancestors in such a way that we can take your entire fleet down. And the Americans responded by taking that seriously because of what they had seen so far that they had hidden from the American public. They said, well, let's see if they can pull this off. And since they had already taken Okinawa, then they basically had a lot of men laying in wait who were basically guinea pigs, and they didn't inform them about it. But there were scientific observers. And the scientific observers reported back they did it because that nothing was happening according to any natural laws. According to all the wind currents, that typhoon should never have manifested. It should never, not in the way it did. And it should never increased in intensity the way it did. It should never have maneuvered the way it did, almost as if it had a mind of its own, and hit directly the port in which all of the invasion assets had been parked and ported. It was truly supernatural.
As challenging as this information is, it may be worth knowing because knowledge can help us make better choices. For the full interview, go to cmn.tv.